I'd like to call the February 3rd, 2025 regular meeting of the Union County Board of Commissioners to order. At this time, I will provide the invocation if you would like to join. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you very much for your provision, your protection, and your continued blessings over Union County, North Carolina. We are so thankful for what you do for the citizens of this county. We pray for our farmers, law enforcement, those that choose to teach in our schools, work in our libraries, our fire departments, EMS. We ask you to protect them, bless them. And dear Heavenly Father, I just want to praise you and ask you to give us guidance and wisdom to make decisions that are always in the very best interest of those that we serve. And it's in your name that I pray. Amen. If everyone would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That brings us to informal comments. I believe we do have a couple of people that signed up online. And let's see, let's make it very formal here. Each speaker must address the board from the lectern and begin their remarks by first giving their name, stating whether they are residents of Union County and indicating the municipality within which they reside, if any. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make remarks. A tone may sound at the conclusion of your remarks. A speaker may not yield any of his or her time to another speaker. Speakers may not discuss matters which are the subject of public hearings, and they must be courteous in their language and presentation. Restatements or repetitive comments by the same speaker, whether at the same or a separate meeting, may be ruled out of order and terminated by the chair. Personal attacks will not be tolerated. Speakers may leave written comments and/or supporting documents, if any, with our clerk to the board. We will begin tonight with Meredith Marr.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing well today. My name is Meredith Marr, and I'm here with John Thomason. I live in Indian Trail, and John is also a member of Union County as well. We're here to introduce Trees Union, which is a growing grassroots organization founded in 2023 with members across Union County, all dedicated to enhancing the area's tree canopy with the goal of improving residents' lives, health, safety, and quality of life. We're fortunate to have the expertise of Union County's urban forestry program in establishing and supporting our initiatives. Through this collaboration and other partnerships, we're addressing the critical challenge of tree canopy loss as our growing county just continues to develop, particularly in areas like Waxhaw, Indian Trail, and Monroe. Union County's planning department projects we will have around 400,000 residents by 2025, which is about a 60% increase. Our strongest partnership is with Union County Public Schools, where we've already made significant impact. Working closely with UCPS administrators and facility staff, we planted 36 trees this last fall at local elementary schools, creating better learning environments and safer playgrounds for generations of students. We also planted some trees on the Monroe Greenway to add shade to a very sunny portion of the path. Combined with our 3 tree plantings that we did this fall, we engaged over 100 parent and student volunteers at Stallings Elementary, Union Elementary, and the Monroe Greenway, fostering environmental stewardship. Research shows that trees deliver crucial public health benefits. Tree-lined streets have been shown to improve traffic safety, while strategic tree placement can reduce residential energy costs by up to 25%. For our children, trees around schools, playgrounds, and homes correlate with reduced ADHD symptoms, lower asthma rates, among many other benefits. For fiscal year 2026, we're looking forward to expanding our impact through 3 key initiatives. Planting 200 trees at Union County Public Schools. We're projecting we've got a goal of reaching about 25% tree canopy coverage around the playground areas. Distributing 1,000 seedlings at community and Arbor Day events to engage the residents and the public. And providing 200 trees to neighborhoods with below average canopy coverage. We are, brand new, so we operate a lean ship. We are able to dedicate over 97% of our funding and donations directly to tree plantings and distribution. And we do this through maintaining strong partnerships with local organizations, municipalities, businesses, and volunteers. We're seeking your support to help create a greener and healthier and more prosperous Union County that maintains its natural character while accommodating growth. Thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just want to say thank you. This is really great. I'm very happy to learn about this tonight. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, what size tree do you typically plant?
We go.
I'm sorry.
If you'd like some personal recommendations.
I'm in the tree business. That's it. So, full disclosure. Right.
We're focusing on native trees. We want to diversify the tree canopy. A lot of, developments come in and they plant only 1 or 2 types of trees.
Right.
But it's really in our best interest to have a diverse base of trees.
Going with seedlings or larger material?
Are they like 3-gallon, 5-gallon, 10-gallon?
Oh, so around the schools, we're shooting for, I think, 15 gallons.
Oh,
Because, the kids are a little rough on the trees. If you plant the 7 gallons, it's most likely just to get snapped. But when we do our tree giveaways, we're going to do 7-gallon trees. Yeah, and the seedlings are much smaller. They're like, tiny little things. So
Crepe myrtles?
I don't think crepe myrtles are on the docket, although they are lovely.
So when you say native,
Yeah.
give us 2 or 3.
Red bud, you've got red maples, they are domestic. You've got lolly? All kinds of oaks, live oaks. Does that name a couple?
Very nice. Yes.
My grandfather used to tell me that if you got a 15-gallon tree, you got to have a 30-gallon hole.
Yep.
Who digs the holes for these things?
So we've got great relationships with the Urban Forestry Department, and they have great relationships with the Parks and Recs departments. So most of the time, for all of our plantings, we're able to get county Parks and Rec people to come out, get an auger, and dig the holes for us. So when we do that, we planted 24 trees in an hour with, a couple hundred volunteers, and it was a piece of cake, and everyone had a great time.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Meredith Marr, it
Yes.
was nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Nice thing to learn. Yes.
One more, and I'll quit. Do you have an approved species list that you work by?
I'm sorry?
Do you have an approved species list that you work by?
sure we do. John, do you? This is John Thomason. He works with, he's our coordinator between the Rotary clubs and
Okay.
Boy Scouts. He helps kind of manage all our tree plantings.
And thankfully, we have some very experienced people like our PhD county arborist, and it depends on the job. So we try to get the right trees for the right job. So there are lists of native trees, there are lists from the Landscape Association, there are lists of great adapted trees and native trees for the areas. But we try to put in the right trees for the right job.
Okay. I'm good.
Thanks, Don.
Well, we look forward to you coming back and giving us an update later.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you so
Thank you all
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Katie Ryan.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Katie Ryan, and I'm a proud resident of Union County in the town of Stallings. I'm also president of Spay Neuter North Carolina and the leader of Change for Union County, a volunteer group that works hand in hand with Union County Animal Services. Our volunteers contribute over 3,000 hours to the local animal shelter. Tonight, I am here to bring attention to an issue that directly affects the quality of life of your constituents. We recently conducted a survey, and over 350 Union County residents shared their frustration about the state of animal welfare in our county. Their message was clear: we need change. We are advocating for common sense solutions that respect our traditions as a rural community while also ensuring public safety and animal welfare. We ask you to establish an animal services committee. Let's bring together the right people, veterinarians, nonprofit leaders, business owners, livestock owners, to have a real conversation about the challenges our county is experiencing. This would not be unprecedented. The commissioners already benefit from 19 other citizen advisory groups. It's time to give animal services the same level of attention. Our county's animal ordinances haven't been updated since 1997, and they no longer fit the reality of Union County. Our ordinances are outdated, unclear, and ineffective. They do little to prevent animal cruelty and provide limited enforcement power to our animal control officers. The challenges extend beyond ordinances. Our animal control officers are stretched too thin. We need more of them. Union County has grown by 40% in the last 20 years, but our shelter has not grown with it. In just the last 4 years, shelter impoundments have increased 20%. In 2024, very sadly, for the first time, healthy and adoptable animals were euthanized not due to illness, but due to space. An animal services committee can help us plan strategically to ensure our shelter meets the needs of a growing county. We know that spaying and neutering reduces the number of unwanted animals. This county's investment in a shelter veterinarian was a great step, and we all applaud you for that. Now let's take the next step. We asked the county to award a community partner grant to the Humane Society of Union County, which operates the Monroe Low-Cost Spay-Neuter Clinic. County-funded affordable spay-neuter would help seniors, veterans, and limited-income families and drastically reduce the number of animals being abandoned and surrendered at the shelter. Animal services isn't often at the top of the county's agenda, but it should be because it affects your constituents every single day. Tonight, we're asking you just to take the first simple step and discuss forming an animal services committee with us. We can bring the right people to the table. We can work together with animal control to find solutions that make sense for both our rural traditions and the future of a growing Union County. We can create a safer and healthier community for both residents and animals alike. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kimberly Williams.
She is with Lou.
I hear that's going to be a lot.
Oh, my goodness.
Heard that a lot today. Next we have Laura Sir.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name's Laura Sir. I live in Wingate. I have been a Union County resident for 24 years now, and just over 15 years of that has been as an animal welfare advocate. So today I'm here to second Katie's request that we talk about having an animal services committee, and I would also like to highlight the critical issue of the urgent need for affordable spay and neuter services. The rising cost of veterinary care has made even low-cost spay-neuter options inaccessible for many residents, particularly seniors, veterans, and families with limited incomes. Every single day, we receive pleas from people calling, wanting to do the right thing, and they don't have the money to do it, and there's only so much that we can do ourselves to help. The lack of affordable spay-neuter services has far-reaching consequences: increased animal abandonment, including on the property of the Humane Society. They get put over our fence and left in our parking lot frequently. Stray dogs roaming rural roads, creating hazards for residents and drivers. Families overwhelmed by unexpected litters they cannot care for, and overcrowding at the animal shelter, forcing healthy and adoptable animals to be euthanized when space runs out. In desperation, some residents have resorted to abandoning their pets in unsafe conditions, endangering both the animals and the public. We do thank the county for funding the veterinarian at the shelter to do the spay and neuter of the shelter animals. We also want to thank you for a previous one-time gift to the Humane Society, where we were able to take county money and alter 576 animals with the money provided, and that made a huge dent. Since its inception in 2011, the Monroe Low-Cost Spay-Neuter Clinic has performed over 44,250 spay and neuter surgeries. This has prevented thousands of unwanted litters and is helping to significantly reduce shelter intake between 2010 and 2020. However, since 2020, the intake has gone back up approximately 20%, or 19%, excuse me. By forming an animal services committee and supporting affordable spay-neuter initiatives, we can reduce stray and abandoned animals, ease the burden on an overcrowded shelter, and create safer neighborhoods for residents. With additional county funding, we can expand these critical services we provide to low-income pet owners, preventing thousands more of unwanted animals from entering the shelter system. This is a practical, common-sense solution and with immediate measurable benefits for our community. The Humane Society is that my time's up? Thank you for listening then.
Thank you very much. Next is April Thomason.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is April Thomason, and I am a resident of Wingate, North Carolina. I'm a little bit nervous, so, okay. So I am here on the behalf of House of Pearls. We are a nonprofit located halfway in Wingate, the city of Wingate, and halfway in Union County, kind of on the edge there. We are a one-year nonprofit, or one-year drug rehabilitation program for women who struggle with addictions. I'm actually here to back them up. I'm speaking tonight because Union County's outdated animal ordinances have had a direct and serious impact on our property. A few months ago, 3 female dogs were abandoned on our property that took up residence under our buildings. We did what any responsible property owner would do, and we called animal control for help. But because these dogs were not considered dangerous, they couldn't do anything about it. So we were stuck with it. The situation quickly escalated. These female dogs gave birth, and before we knew it, we had 17 dogs and puppies on our property that we didn't even want. Still, no one from animal control could help, and no one could find the owners because there wasn't any kind of law. Union County doesn't have a leash law, and our ordinances do not hold people accountable for letting their animals roam. We wanted to do the right thing, but the cost of spaying, neutering, and vaccinating 17 dogs was over $5,000, a financial burden we should never have to have had to bear. Thankfully, the animal rescue community stepped up to help us. Today, we've kept all the adult dogs, but this situation took months of work and should have never happened in the first place. People should not be allowed to let their dogs wander. And I want to add to that, I don't have long. These dogs broke loose from a situation because they weren't being taken care of. And they came to us, and we couldn't turn them away. Had they been taken care of, this wouldn't have happened. This stuff should come with fines and consequences for the people who do this. This is not just our story. Across the county, Dozens and dozens of residents are struggling with loose dogs, abandoned animals, and a lack of enforcement. We need common sense updates to our ordinances to reflect the reality of Union County today, not the way it was in 1997. We urge you to take the first steps by forming the Animal Services Committee to evaluate our animal laws, which need changing. Let's create clear, enforceable policies and protect those, both residents and animals. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
My name's Todd Barber. I live at 2007 Astoria Drive at Indian Trail. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I speak here today on my own accord, not on behalf of the town staff or the entire elected body. First off, congratulations to Ms. Helms, Mr. Side, Mr. Balcom on your hard-fought, successful November election. I'd like to congratulate Ms. Merrill and Mr. Helms on your appointment as chair and vice chair. First off, I'd like to thank the county and its Park and Rec team for the placement of ice skating ring in Indian Trail. I'm sure the residents enjoyed it. I'd like to thank Mr. Helms for coming to speak to our council the other night about the resolution concerning SB 382. Councilmember Amberg, I understand, has placed it on the next agenda. I agree with the county and the local municipalities should be allowed to restrict high-density residential zoning. Matter of fact, just during the meeting, I got a rare text from my wife asking who the real professional guy was that was speaking. All I can say, Mr. Helms, you can't hide handsome. I was like, oh, of all the people, you're the man. The county and the town worked together on putting a water line in over at Emerald Woods and Indian Trail, and I understand that's progressing, and we appreciate that, getting people off well water. We have the same situation, actually worse, in a neighborhood in Indian Trail. It's called Morris Park Community. I'd like to thank y'all. I understand y'all did the entire design for that. And I told a resident, some of them, that I would come down here when it started pushing budget time to appeal to your good nature of maybe we can do the same thing. You know, I'm sure the residents would appreciate it. I understand the county is setting up its own economic development commission. I think it's a great idea, and hopefully it will serve the municipalities in a bigger and better capacity. Our town does not have an economic development position on staff, and we do not have an economic development board. And so I appeal to your good nature, if the county while setting this up, consider Indian Trail having a presence in this new endeavor that you're taking on. I don't think we had a official capacity in the one before, so that's just my thinking. You may have different, but I like to commend this board for exercising patience, physical constraint, and common sense in regards to expanding sewer capacity. I appreciate the county expanding 12 Mile Creek and other approved measures that will guarantee future business development in Indian Trail. I understand not a single project in Indian Trail was denied sewer last year, and we still have capacity. No matter all we've heard, the bottom line is do you have it or you don't, and nobody's been denied. I appreciate that. And regarding the possibilities, I'm sorry, I guess got a little bit more, is that okay?
I'm going to allow you to finish because we want to hear from Indian Trail. You can wrap it up.
I appreciate that. I don't hear well, and I think you said keep going. And I'm serious, without a hearing assisted device, and I have hearing aids in, I'm losing my hearing. In reading the possibilities this county is pursuing for the future, I just want to say it was a clear sign you didn't just jump to decisions that will greatly raise sewer and water rates. Instead, you acted as an elected official should act on behalf of the people and looking after their bottom line. And my wife is just really tight. She don't want to see that water bill go up. Indian Trail is a unique community in the fact that we're kind of a suburb community, not a traditional town. So we get a lot of our service in conjunction with the county, such as we contract the wonderful sheriff's department over here, and they do a great job. We contract with the fire. Well, actually, Indian Trail residents don't pay any extra for fire. through their taxes. It's all done through their fire things. We get EMS, water and sewer through the county, for example. I appreciate any efforts the commissioners can make to keep our taxes low with the reevaluation coming. And I know I'm going to get the same thing over in Indian Trail, but none of you live in Indian Trail, so you can't blame me. So anyway, I just like the county and the town and all of us to have a great relationship. I think you got a good working board from what I can tell. And I just want to come in here and say just a few thoughts, and really the most part to say, some of us really appreciate what you're doing, and thank you. And may God grant you the wisdom to govern smart. Thank you. God bless you.
Mr. Barber has been here several times over the past year, year and a half. Mayor Cohen has been several times. And I just want to, I want to thank you for being such a good partner, you know, with the county. So thank you again.
Well, thank you. And little Joe T says hey to all of y'all. He was a pole breeder.
That concludes our public comments. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing concerning Step 4 Economic Development Incentive Grant in an amount not to exceed $2,350,000 over a 5-year period for a confidential company identified as Project Nickel. I will open the public hearing and recognize Ron Mail, our Economic Development Director, for comments.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Manager Matthews, it is my pleasure to bring before you tonight an Economic Development Incentive Grant request for Project Nickel. Typically, when we bring a project to you, we identify the company by name. Tonight, I'm referring to this opportunity by the confidential code name Project Nickel. The reason we cannot divulge the name tonight is that we are pursuing economic incentives through the state of North Carolina, which means if awarded, the company name will be announced first by the governor's office. And we expect to hear from the state regarding those incentives over the next 2 weeks. I am very proud to share with you details of this opportunity that I am sure you will find very attractive. Our Economic Development Department started conversations with Project Nickel in the summer of 2024. My Assistant Director, Rachel Holzman, first became aware of the opportunity while attending the Farnborough Air Show in England this past summer. Over the subsequent months, we learned the following details. Project Nickel is an existing Union County firm whose corporate headquarters is in another state. The company produces very sophisticated products which are delivered to customers across the globe. Demand for its products has grown to a level where its current manufacturing capacity cannot keep up. The parent corporation operates another production facility in another state that produces the same products. To meet the current and expected future demand, it is necessary to construct a new 50,000 square foot processing facility and install the most sophisticated production equipment of its kind. Expected capital investment is $100 million. Again, capital investment of $100 million. In addition to the high level of investment, the project is expected to create 65 new full-time jobs, paying an approximate annual wage of $78,000. That's a little over $5 million each year in new wages. To enhance the business case to the company's leadership to locate this project in Union County, my office is requesting the following incentive. Project Nickel's $100 million capital investment qualifies it for a standard Step 4 Economic Development Incentive Grant in an amount not to exceed $2,350,000 paid over a 5-year period beginning in fiscal year 2028. Based on anticipated capital investment, the company would pay estimated ad valorem taxes of $2,940,000 over the same grant period. Of course, actual tax revenues to the county will be based on the current tax rate applied to the assessed value of the investment each year after depreciation. Therefore, given the potential to secure this high level of capital investment and also secure the well-paying jobs. The staff of the Union County Economic Development Department recommend the award of this Step 4 Economic Development Grant to Project Nickel in an amount not to exceed $2 million. Sorry, I'm choke up when I say the size of the grant. To Project Nickel in an amount not to exceed $2,350,000 to help secure this $100 million investment. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak at the public hearing? Okay. We have no speakers signed up for the public hearing. Are there any speakers here tonight that wish to speak regarding this public hearing? Hi. Joel.
Hello, my name is Joel Down, as you guys already know. I live in Wesley Chapel. I wasn't going to speak on this, but obviously this is a great opportunity for the county. I think that the county should pursue something like this. The one thing that I was thinking about while I was sitting here is that maybe put a contingency that is contingent on the state also approving it. Obviously, it seems like the state would approve it, as it is sounds like a great opportunity for the state and also the county, but just possibly so that covers the county and the taxpayers as ourselves. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel. I will now close the public hearing. Next on the agenda is item 25-015. I would like to recognize Lifesaver Award recipient and recognize Deputy County Manager Patrick Nyland concerning this recognition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're here to recognize one of our employees tonight. I'd like to ask Ken Prasinski to come to the podium. On October 3rd, 2024, Ken was running one of our senior nutrition home-delivered meal routes, and he came upon a house. He noticed the door was ajar. He reached his head in and yelled out, and he could hear cries from help. There was an elderly gentleman who had fallen in the bathroom and had been there for a period of time. I believe it was overnight.
Yeah, 24 hours.
And who knows how long that gentleman would have survived in that situation, but Ken was able to get inside, get him stabilized, call 911, coordinate with a supervisor, and was able to get in touch with the family. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that without Ken's intervention that day, that gentleman might not be with us today. Ken is a bit of a frequent flyer. About a year prior, some of you might remember, and we recognized Ken last year for a similar life-saving event to where there was an individual at a congregate site that he performed the Heimlich maneuver on and brought that individual back. And I believe this is your fifth life-saving. Sixth life-saving.
Not awards, but 6 times in my life that's happened.
This is his 6th time.
It started at 12 years old. I was 12 for the first one.
That he has been able to save someone's life. So it's pretty incredible, the life you've had in this, and we couldn't be more proud of Ken. So please help me congratulate Ken on this award.
Thank you.
Clone, someone who saves lives everywhere he goes. The next item on the agenda is item 25-065, introduction of Jason May, Director of Budget and Grants Management. I would like to recognize Assistant County Manager Clayton Boyner concerning this matter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight it's my pleasure to introduce you to Jason May. He is our new Director of Budget and Grants Management and started with the county last week. He has over 20 years of experience in local government, most recently serving as the Director of Budget and Strategic Planning for the City of Richmond, Virginia, where he managed the city's budget process, capital improvement program, and federal pandemic funding initiatives. He also previously served in director and management roles in North Carolina local governments, including Burke County and the city of Kannapolis. He has a bachelor's degree from UNC Charlotte and an MPA degree from Appalachian State University. He has completed both the Senior Executive Institute at the Virginia Institute of Government and the Municipal and County Administration course at UNC School of Government. He is also a certified local government budget and evaluation officer with the North Carolina Local Government Budget Association. So you'll be seeing more of Jason at your retreat next week and throughout the budget process, and we look forward to his contributions here in Union County.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening.
Okay.
I feel underachieved. I didn't save anybody's life. I haven't done anything else either. I'm trying to figure out where the money is.
Well,
Thank-
welcome. You have two pluses. You're a 49er
Yes,
and a Mountaineer.
yes.
So, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
We look forward to working with you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much.
Madam Chair, just for the record, Jason May is unrelated to Jason Kay, except by rhyming and poem. Whatever emails I get for you, I promise to provide immediately to you.
And vice versa. Yeah. Very good. It is now time for the consideration of the agenda and the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question? And maybe the manager can help me. What exactly is the process for setting up, has been requested, Animal Services Advisory Committee? What's the actual process we go through to set up an advisory committee?
It's really very, very simple. The board would honestly direct us to go out, create a structure, probably look for some similar bylaws that already exist somewhere, give you some advice on the number of individuals you should serve, and then after that, you advertise it for interested parties. So it's relatively simple.
And relatively cost-free?
That's really up to the board. Some of our boards and committees are unpaid. Those are usually ad hoc and don't last for any period of time. Others receive a stipend, like our land use board. Some other boards do receive some stipend.
I would personally volunteer to serve as the commission representative on such an advisory committee. I guess I will need to discuss with my colleagues if there's interest in moving forward before we do anything formal. Thank you. Thank you for the information.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agenda and consent agenda as published.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now at the business portion of our agenda. The first item for business is item 25-059. It's just information only. So that'll bring us straight to business. So first up is item 25-059, consider a Step 4 Economic Development Incentive Grant in the amount not to exceed $2,350,000 over a 5-year period for a confidential company identified as Project Nickel. I will recognize Ron Mail, Economic Development Director, concerning this item.
Madam Chair, thank you. Again, any questions that you have, you would welcome those and try to answer them the best I can.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Madam Chair? Not a question, but I'll offer a motion that we first award a Step 4 Economic Development Incentive Grant in the amount not to exceed $2,350,000 dollars over a 5-year period, and 2, authorize the county manager to negotiate and execute an agreement substantially consistent with this agenda item.
Motion is on the floor. Any comments, any feedback? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. 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 Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is item 25-055, Union County Jail Study Update. I want to recognize Chris Boyd, our Facilities and Fleet Management Director, concerning this item.
Well, good evening, Commissioners. We appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you and give you an update on the jail study that's currently underway. As you're aware, the board gave direction to the county manager and leadership team to begin a study that could begin to update the statistics and data and ultimately the bed count estimates and projections for potential new jail last year. The update tonight will include discussions about the study's process, the process followed by our design team, data collected, and an analysis of that data. You'll see a focus on 2 projections. The first is where no changes are expected or planned for in the current justice system processes, and a second that includes or anticipates an increase in future bookings. So those are 2 forecasts for you to consider as you're reviewing the information. I'd also like to point out that this portion or this update, the information in this update, is only a portion of the total study. In order to move forward with the rest of the study, we're going to need some direction in a future meeting with the board. And so you'll hear the design team talk about some of the next steps that they have in their processes. I will also share some next steps for Union County specifically, kind of really focused on the retreat on the 12th and some of the things we'll share in that retreat. We're not asking the board to take any action tonight, just only to receive this information included in the update. So I'd like to now introduce Alan Richardson and Patrick Jablonski with Justice Planners. They are subject matter experts in detention center and prison planning, and they're going to lead the presentation tonight. So I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you. Yep. Good evening. I'm Alan Richardson with Justice Planners, and I thank you for the opportunity to come in and speak with you this evening. Just a quick overview of the team for the jail study here for this project is Little Architects along with Hemphill Randall Architects will be doing the design portion later in this project. Justice Planners, to tell you a little bit about Justice Planners, I started as a corrections officer over 35 years ago. I worked pretty much every position in a county jail up to facility commander. Got the great opportunity to work on staff with the National Institute of Corrections in Colorado for a period of time before I started doing private consulting. Just in the last 7-8 years, I guess since 2018, Justice Planners had the great opportunity to do now 30 such detention center needs assessments, 19 detention and prison master plans. And so we take our operational experience and put it to work here. And we've just had the great fortune and opportunity to be able to work across the country with this. With me tonight, I've got Dr. Patrick Jablonski. I'll let him introduce himself in just a moment whenever he gets up and dazzles you with the data analysis and information that he's got for you. The purpose of the needs assessment portion of this study is quite simple. take a look at the data from the local criminal justice system, from the jail, and to be able to synthesize that to determine what the future inmate population and bed space needs are going to be for Union County. Our process for this, back in September, we came on site for several days. We interviewed a lot of the key stakeholders in the local criminal justice system. We use this data and information, again, to do a deep dive on reconstructing forensically the inmate population in the facility, use this information to come up with a forecast for the future size of the population, as well as an alternate or two to say, one, if nothing changes, what are you looking at? And two, if things do change, like Chris was mentioning, if bookings do go up, then what's the implication going to be for Union County? Any questions on that? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alan, first of all, thank you for being here and presenting this information to us. I've got a quick question regarding the stakeholders.
Okay.
Listed here in bullet number 1, sub-bullet number 1 under the process. Who exactly were the key stakeholders that your firm interviewed?
Oh, gosh. We interviewed folks from the jail, from the sheriff's office, from local law enforcement, the courts, the prosecuting attorney, defense attorneys, local magistrate. Off the top of my head, I know there were a few others, but it was a pretty good list of individuals.
Okay, thank you. I think it's important to understand, who the key stakeholders that were interviewed and polled, with this study. Obviously, our job as commissioners is we have to represent the most important stakeholder that we have, and that's the taxpayers of Union County.
Sure.
So am I right to say then that your team, your firm, interviewed essentially the sheriff's office, jail, courts, judicial, and magistrate? Is that kind of in a nutshell?
Plus others. I tell you, while Patrick is presenting, I can pull up and give you that exact list of
That'd be
who all we
great.
talked to.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions at this point? Okay, with that, Patrick.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's great to be here. Without further ado, I'll try to dazzle you with our data analysis. Thanks, boss. I would have to say this is a fairly complex study. There's a lot of moving pieces anytime that you're looking at matters of the criminal justice system, especially if you're looking out a quarter century. And so one of the things that we start with is we try to get a feel for the context of the community, and really right off the bat, the incredible growth of Union County over time and what's expected in the future dictates so much. So much of the discussion that we've seen already this evening is just really the incredible growth for this county, and that's very important to our projections. However, there's other pieces to the projections that go beyond the growth. And so we start with that context, which is the projected population for the adult component of the community going to 2050. We downloaded data from the North Carolina State Demographer's Office and took it apart. Luckily, this state does a good job of disaggregating the population data such that we're not just looking at an overall county growth picture. If we were to look at the overall county growth picture at 64% across the next quarter century. However, that includes children and senior citizens who are not necessarily coming to the jail operation. And so we look at the adult population, and actually when we built our projection scenarios, we looked at males as well, because that's about 85% of the jail population. You can see from the chart that growth is astronomical. However, you already knew that. This does have an impact in our bookings forecast that we look at down the road. What we start with is, if you look at the average daily population of the jail, going back to January 2018, 7 years ago, you can see that it is has periods of peaks and valleys. You can see in 2020 the impact of COVID, but then the population recovered very quickly from COVID, and it drops again, goes back up. But really from 2022 forward, the jail's population in Union County is really artificially constrained because of a capacity problem. There's many more individuals who ought to be coming to jail that aren't necessarily coming to jail, at least in the view of the key stakeholders. And when we dig into the numbers, we sort of see that as well. When we break our data into monthly chunks, we see that despite the capacity constraints on the jail, the number of individuals that the county is responsible for goes up, and you'll see a spike at the end of our data. Essentially what's going on here is the number of individuals who have a violent felony charge have increased over time, such that there's really no choice in terms of holding these individuals. And so the sheriff's office is in the position of having to house these individuals, but also house them in other places as well. And so the type of inmate that's coming into the facility has changed qualitatively. It's a much more serious population than it was 7 years ago. There's two factors. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, let me stop you right here because I've got a couple of questions.
Of course.
If you can go back to the first slide regarding population. Yes, thank you. You're right. I mean, we've seen tons of projections this board has. I mean, everybody that's involved in county government, has personally experienced and witnessed the growth here in Union County, and so have our residents. But what I question, though, is that you said that you get your population data from the North Carolina State Demographer's Office, correct?
Yes, sir.
And where do they get their data from?
I don't know.
Okay. The reason why I asked this question is, sorry.
Typically, that information comes from the county as far as the past data, and then they make estimates on their own. So like we provide them with any population counts, building permits, that level of information, and then they do their own estimates.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. The reason why I posed the question is because lately we've seen lots of studies regarding population growth. One of those was recently published by the Charlotte Business Alliance. You may have probably seen that study. I know that some members of our board have seen it. That particular organization had published that it anticipates a 50% growth in the greater Charlotte area. And I think it's important that we understand that organizations, like the Charlotte Business Alliance, as one, is funded typically by other members that rely on growth for revenue. And so I think that we should kind of take this as face value here, but understand that there's other intricacies involved with any kind of data or statistics that we get on growth. If you could go forward, also one slide, please. I believe it was here. You made the comment, and I wanted to go back to this. You made the comment essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you said that you were insinuating that we would be making more arrests if we had more beds. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is that information that you got from your key stakeholders?
Yes.
And who would that be?
Law enforcement agencies.
Okay, so
to include the sheriff's office, Wingate, what were the other law enforcement? Monroe PD.
So we're talking about our local law enforcement is telling you that that we're not arresting folks because we don't have bed space.
Correct.
So we are allowing potentially violent offenders to be let go because we don't have bed space.
Yeah, Commissioner, I didn't say that about violent offenders. What I'm saying is what we're seeing is a shift in arrest processes such that there's operations that the sheriff's office, for instance, conducted as a matter of course, driver's license checks, DUI checkpoints 7 years ago that they have to seriously reduce nowadays because they just don't have the bed space.
If I may jump in here, if my memory is correct, I think in previous presentations we had been told, weekenders, for example, criminals or whatever that are supposed to check themselves in on the weekend, if we didn't have bed space, they would be sent home. So maybe that's part of it, the weekenders. But I believe we also, County Manager Matthews, were we not also told that, that we had a contract, I believe, with Cabarrus County or someone else that, for a daily fee, they would house some of our criminals for us?
Right,
Not
so-
necessarily, pass go.
Right, so we have a loose agreement with Cabarrus County that when we are over the jail population, they will take some of our folks and they will obviously keep them at a cost. We pay that.
Are we still doing that?
We are,
Okay.
yes. And it really just depends, and I let the sheriff's office speak to it to more, details on it, but it really depends on the circumstances of, are we above our count or not, what's going on. We do, if we're doing major repairs and we have to shift some of the inmates out to do repairs, we would use it for that purpose as well.
Okay. So I just want to share that because we have had extensive conversations about those type of people, like the weekenders. I remember that in particular, that, if we were at capacity, they would have to go back home and not check themselves in for the weekend.
That's an excellent example.
So,
I didn't know you were finished. Go ahead.
give me just one second.
Sure, go ahead.
So, okay, so it's your understanding then that we have a directive that, well, we've got to limit the arrest because we don't have jail space?
I'm not sure about the term directive, but what we heard fairly consistently from the stakeholders is there's a artificial suppression on the number of individuals who get booked into the facility due to the capacity situation.
And then on the flip side of that, then, your assumption is that if we had more bed space available, that we could make additional arrests and we could essentially fill the bed space.
Yes, sir.
So with more bed space, then we're able to arrest more
Yes, sir.
and detain more.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, all right. That's all I have for right now.
Okay.
Yes.
On slide 5, do we have the completed data for the year-to-date for the ADP?
This goes through the end of September 2024.
The year-to-date?
Yes, we got our tranche of data from the sheriff's office in early October. We conducted the analysis in October.
Okay, but you don't have anything through the remaining of 2024?
Okay.
This is more of a general question. Your slide back, if you could go back to Union County population slide, you're projecting between 2050, 64%. My question is, in considering a new jail, what is a reasonable expectation of the life of a new jail facility? Because I'm expecting it to be a lot more than 25 years to 2050. I mean, we build high schools for 50 and 60 years. And I'm assuming the growth projection is part of the formula you're using to project the needed bed size of a new facility. Is that's part of the function, right?
Yeah, it's a piece of the forecast models. It's not the absolute best predictor of our
Right.
models, but
Okay.
it has a component in the math.
Okay. So I guess what I'm asking is, if you're only projecting the population here out to 2050, how long is a reasonable expectation for a new jail, for the numbers farther out than 2050 to be as far as the ideal population, because it's going to last X number of years?
So far as a life expectancy for a detention center, there is no hard, fast rule. I would say a rule of thumb is looking at potentially 30 years.
Really? Just 30 years?
Well, keep in mind,
I guess it depends on how good you build it, right?
depends on how good you build it, depends on how well you maintain it. If you drive your car day after day after day and never
Good
change
point.
the oil
Yeah.
in there, it's not going to last as long.
Right.
If you defer maintenance on a detention facility, it's not going to last as long.
Right.
And typically, in looking at a jail, I can do the math and show you cool charts and stuff, but typically a jail is going to age approximately 3.5 times faster than a typical county building.
Because of wear and tear.
Because it
your
operates
population,
24
yeah.
hours a day, 7 days
Yeah.
a week. It never closes, and you've got less than desirable clientele
Rough
that
folks.
do a lot of wear and tear on the place. Then when it gets crowded, you start putting 2 offenders in a space designed for 1, it's going to age
Sure.
that much faster.
Okay.
With population projections, not to step on any of yours, the farther you get out, when you start looking 20, 30 years out into the future, it becomes a little less, your reliability factor
Sure,
starts to deteriorate a little bit.
It's hard to
there.
project that far out.
Exactly. And with a jail facility, and again, if you don't defer your maintenance, if you stay on
Right.
top of it, it's going to last much longer.
Take care of what you got.
Exactly.
Okay. Also, could you, obviously, 2008, the Great Recession did not have a long-term impact on our population growth or the pandemic. Are there any foreseeable events you could see between now and 2050 or the next 30 years that might impact this growth rate?
Go for it.
Commissioner, any number of things that can happen that would impact the growth rate. Another pandemic, massive public policy change. There's a ton of uncertainty 10, 15, 20 years out.
But the events along those lines that we've seen in the past haven't had a long-term effect. The pandemic, I mean, we're back in 2008, which affected the real estate market and all the financial markets. It's recovered from that, so it really hasn't had a long-lasting effect on the trajectory of our growth. Is that fair to say?
No, for the free world population growth, no, it hasn't. In terms of a correctional population, it's a little bit unique for Union County because you're constrained by capacity. In about 90% of the projects in the communities that we're lucky enough to work in, what we've seen post-pandemic is that the jail populations largely have not fully risen back to where they were on a pre-pandemic basis, because typically the individuals who have less serious matters and less violence, they were released more during 2020 and 2021, and because they have capacity, we've seen those populations stay lower than they were on a pre-pandemic basis. It's not the case here because, frankly, candidly, you were short of jail space well before the pandemic.
So we have an artificial bottleneck, if you will, in the system because of limited capacity.
That's a great way of putting it.
That may skew the numbers as we start to get to bump up to that ceiling. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. At a basic level, my job, it looks to be relatively simple. I only have to track 2 factors to predict a jail's population. It's the number of individuals coming to the jail, bookings, and how long those individuals stay. It's the complexity within each of those 2 categories. So briefly, we'll look at bookings and average length of stay for Union County on a historical basis. We start with average daily bookings. The blue trend here is bookings. These are monthly time points going to the end of September, and the black line is the average daily population. I realize I'm hitting you with a rather complex chart right off the bat. Rest assured, we had a much larger presentation for staff to review that kind of builds to this, and you get hit with the final product. And so that fact is not lost on me. To step you through it, essentially, if you pay attention to the dashed lines, the little dotted lines that I plotted on the 2 trends, you can see that the bookings trend and the average daily population trend march relatively relatively well together for about a 5-year period, coming out of the pandemic, certainly. It really boils down to this. The more people that you bring to a correctional facility, in general, the average daily population will go up. We haven't talked about average length of stay yet. So to be clear, there's a relatively healthy diversion process in a lot of communities, and that there's people who aren't arrested, they get diverted from custody here, and a lot of that is driven by the capacity questions that the Sheriff's Office handles with the facility itself. It is our contention, indeed, that the bullet at the bottom right, I think, is we stand by it, that bookings will increase substantially if more beds come online, because that's where really law enforcement is at this point. So that's the story with average daily bookings. The other side of the population question is average length of stay. You'll see the relationship between these two trends is slightly different. The red line is average length of stay plotted in days against the scale on the right. Population is plotted against the scale on the left, and again, it's a black line. You'll see that there wasn't all that much relationship going between 2018 and 2021, and arguably not much relationship until, frankly, really the start of 2023. The population uptick that we see during 2024 is due mostly to an average length of stay increase, and this really has its roots in the type of individuals who are coming to the jail when you compare them to, say, 2018, is the proportion of individuals who face a violent charge or a violent felony charge has risen significantly. These are individuals that law enforcement can't just ignore. These are individuals who, in the interest of public safety, have to come to the jail, which then places a burden really on trying to figure out what the nonviolent individuals do in terms of housing or what the detention question is for them. A little bit of math here. If the booking level of 2018, where the community had 17 individuals booked per day instead of the current roughly 15, the average daily population would be 36 higher with today's average length of stay. So average length of stay is creeping up as time goes on. A lot of that is just simply reflective of the fact that these individuals have more serious matters before them that take longer for processing through the judiciary. I will also observe this. The county criminal justice system is excellent compared to just about everywhere we've worked in terms of the front end processing. It's extremely efficient, and I commend the county funding positions to work in the district attorney's office, in particular to review cases, is extremely smart strategically. We were heartened to see that. There's a lot of communities that we go to, and we end up recommending something like that. And to see that you're already doing it is excellent. And I shudder to think what the population question would be if the county wasn't already doing that strategy. The population would be even larger, and you would be facing, I think, a lot more serious questions. So that's average length of stay versus average daily population.
Could I interrupt you? I think you just answered my question, but my concern was if there was any bottleneck that can be addressed in the judicial part of the process. In other words, you're saying there are more serious, the crime's seriousness is increasing. Is our local judicial system, i.e. do we have enough judges, do we have everything in place to address that that's not creating an artificial bottleneck, and that's why the average length of stay is increasing? That something that can be addressed. We need another Superior Court judge, do we need this, that? Did you experience any of that? Or? In our conversations with stakeholders, there were indications of needing another judge or two at that level. I would also have to observe, sadly, that we did not acquire criminal court case processing data for this project.
project. We normally, we try to everywhere because this is in some ways the keys to the kingdom for a project. We finished a project in northern Florida in late last year where we got all the criminal justice information, and we were able to furnish that county with, I think, 21 recommendations-ish of what they could do better in terms of criminal justice case processing. Unfortunately, we were not able to get that data out of the state for this project, and we would happily have analyzed it and then said, here are 6 bottlenecks that you consider. Now, saying that, I think I feel good about where the criminal justice system is because a lot of questions are being addressed. We had a great visit with the judiciary where there's some good ideas that are taking shape. There are changes to the software systems that just got implemented not long ago that I think helps. And I love seeing and hearing about the conversations among the stakeholders in the county. There's a lot of good things. The problem is that you're being swamped by an increasing load of people, and a lot of the matters facing those individuals are much more serious than they were, say, a decade ago.
Since we're paused here, if you can go back one slide, I think. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So I want to look at this graph because as I was studying over some of our materials, this kind of jumped out at me. So January 18th, we're looking at an average daily booking of well over 300.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should explain the chart. The black line, the y-axis is on the left side, and the average daily bookings I plotted on the right side. Didn't mean to be tricky statistically with you. And so if you look at the average daily bookings, instead of 300, it's well over 18 on that basis.
Thank you for the clarification.
I should have said that.
I was looking at this and I'm like, wait a minute.
I should have said that right off the bat.
It's a double chart.
Yeah.
Okay. And I appreciate your clarification there. I think Commissioner Size and I probably had about the same question because, one of the things that, and I think it's on your next slide forward, there we go. Yeah, so you talk about the front end of processing. So the question I had was very similar. So, that almost insinuates that, maybe we have a bottleneck on the back end of processing or, maybe in the court system. So you from what your firm has found, there may be some truth to that then. Is that what
Absolutely.
I'm hearing?
Yeah. And from where I'm standing today, after having conducted the study, is I don't know what I don't know about the criminal court case processing issues. That said, though, I feel good about the process here because, there's conversations taking place, there's concern for it. It's just what I would love to see, candidly, is more managing to the data, which I suspect with what the state judiciary provides, that's what's going on.
And you couldn't get the data from the state?
No, sir.
And that can't be obtained locally?
We tried 2 or 3 different methods, and we got to the person and asked and explained the nature of the project, and we could not get it.
But is it a safe assumption then that if we had that criminal court case data, that would obviously be a smoking gun to identify potentially other bottlenecks in our system?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That sounds pretty serious to me. It sounds like a pretty important piece of data to make sure not just the jail, but the whole judicial process are possible improvements.
Yeah, there's now to be clear, there are general criminal justice case processing numbers that are publicly available.
Right.
In fact, the response of the state courts was, well, look at our website. What I think sets us apart as a company is Justice Planners looks at raw data. And so we were asking for every single criminal motion filed, every criminal matter, and allowing us to do big data, if you will, and crunch the numbers rather than having them just say there were 500 cases filed in a given month. That doesn't tell me how fast things move, when hearings are, how many continuances there are, and some other things.
Maybe I'm getting in the weeds, but evidently, did they say for security purposes they couldn't give it to you, or privacy, or they just don't have it to where they can get to it? Okay.
And
I'm
that-
not from North Carolina, so
Okay.
I feel
All right.
safe in saying this.
Any or all of the above. Okay.
Well, to answer your question, essentially, I don't think the staff involved at the state level wanted to set the precedent of releasing tranches of raw data to researchers for those purposes.
So the state attorney general, who was Josh Stein, who is now our governor, did not want to release that information?
This was state courts. This,
Who,
state
and who
judiciary.
controls that information?
We could get the woman's name for you. I don't remember it.
But it doesn't go through the AG's office?
No.
Madam Chair, I would like for the board to be privy to that, if your firm can
Absolutely.
share us,
Yeah.
or share with
It's
or
the
share with
fact
us
that
that
conversations took place in early October, and I just honestly don't remember, but I
Yeah,
took good notes.
It's very
so I will
convenient
happily
timing.
send that.
Very convenient timing. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. And to actually call back, Commissioner, to your previous question about the study ending in September, is we worked very hard, and Union County staff did as well, to try to secure that data, and that's why we're seeing my study end essentially with the end of September. We were working, trying to get the court data so that we could finish the analysis at that point. And so we worked through a chunk of September, the whole month of October, and as I recall, into November before we were given the hard no. Now, I get a bunch of variables, I have a ton of raw data, and it's time to build a jail population forecast. A little bit about my background. I got my start in criminal justice work at Orange County, Florida, in Orlando. And I was a college professor at the University of Central Florida teaching statistics to large groups of individuals who did not want to be in my classroom. And about the time that my wife told me I needed to get a real job, the only place that would hire me was the county jail in Orange County, Florida. I thought I would do that for about 90 days till something better came along. And I fell in love with the subject matter and the people. And I found that my mathematical modeling from academia, teaching mass communication research and public opinion, was excellent at predicting jail populations. Now, that said, in 2004, I was living in Orlando, and Hurricane Jeanne was coming at us through the Caribbean, and it turned north, and everybody pulled the boards off the houses. And then the storm does a U-turn and comes ashore, which is the map that's there, and everybody cussed the forecasters. Well, now I am a forecaster 20 years later, and essentially the story boils down to this. The forecasters in 2004 with Hurricane Jeanne didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't have a crystal ball. Alan and I are very good at what we do. We do not possess a crystal ball. So this calls back to, I think, our earlier conversation a few minutes ago, Commissioner, that I don't know what public policy changes 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now will happen, or if space aliens invade in 20 years, or what that does to the criminal justice system of Union County. So there's a number of things that could really hurt the effectiveness of my forecast. To put a fine point on this, when I landed at Charlotte, I got a text message about a project that I did in a large city in Georgia, and I had to smile and say they completely changed their criminal justice system 90 days after I released my forecast. Now, I'm hoping that my forecast spurred that change, if anything, but it boils down to this. A forecast is not a prediction. It is, but it really isn't. It's not a recipe for the future. What the best way to predict the future, as my boss often reminds me, is to change the future or create the future. And in the case when I landed at Charlotte this afternoon, was the forecast that I released really was worthless within 90 days because of a profound change in that locality. And so my underline comment on the left side of the screen that there's no unforeseen changes is there intentionally. That one part of the story that we're going to show you is assuming that there are are no changes, that if you go along at the current clip, here's what you're going to have, and that would result in this forecast that we are calling our primary forecast. Again, this assumes that there are no changes in the criminal justice system from where it was when we collected our data at the end of September 2024. This forecast is based on multiple projected simulations of bookings, average length of stay, and the prior history of the jail's average daily population. Bookings itself was modeled in part using the growth curve from the state demographer's office. We also looked at arrest patterns. We tried to look at crime rate. That's not a very good predictor anywhere, thanks to some problems with crime data on a national level, which has impacted our work. And average length of stay, we ended up modeling independently. It would have been nice to have the court data to impact our average length of stay forecast, but we've already covered that. So essentially, we built, I think this one was 15,000 simulations of the future for Union County. We selected the one that was the best fit for the data. At the end of the day, over time, it is our assumption if nothing changes, bookings will double over time from 15 to about 30 per day. The average length of stay will go from its current level of just over 2 weeks to about 22 days. Despite the efforts of everybody to control average length of stay, inevitably we think those efforts will be subsumed by the growing seriousness of the charges that the individuals face. The bottom line is by 2050, the average daily population is expected to be 657 individuals that Union County is responsible for. Now, there's a big asterisk with that. You do not have the space for 657 individuals, and so the pressure will be there to house 657 individuals if nothing changes in the system. Now, that's just the body count. That's the number of humans on an average daily basis. We have to move to the actual required size of a facility requires discussion of a couple factors. There's two things that we have to take into account. Number one, that graph that I just showed you is an average. There are days of the week, hours of the day, and times of the year where the population pressure is larger upon the jail facility. And so you have to take into account what we call a peaking factor, that there are just some times of the year that are busier than others. We went and modeled the data, and we supply two peaking factors. For females, it's 16.1%. For males, it's 8.6%. We have to add that to the average that we have. In my next slide, we'll cover that. There's also this other factor. We call it an operational factor or a classification factor. It's the 2 subpoint on the slide. Is essentially the jail needs internal capacity to move people around, keep different people separate from each other, known enemies, rival gang members, co-defendants, individuals of wildly different classification levels. You don't want a first-time DUI offender housed in the same cell with somebody who's got a extremely violent past. So to maintain safety and security, you have to take into account these two factors, the peaking factor and the classification factor. To do that, we have this table. Let's step through the table so that we make sure that what I'm saying is sensical. Let's look at 2050, the bottom row of the table. On the left side of the table in gray is what we expect to happen with females. If no changes happen in current arrest, detention, or processing practices, we forecast an average daily population of 131 females by 2050. We add the peaking factor of 16.1%, which is 21. That's 21 beds. Then the classification factor is 20 more beds. And so to house safely and securely 131 females in a quarter century, you need 172 beds. The same logic applies to the males. Our average daily population forecast says 526. We add the peaking, the classification factor, and we get a bed need of 650. At the end of the day, the bed need of 650 there. The total average daily population there is... Oh, I'm adding the wrong column. I have confused myself. The total average daily population is 657. The bed need to house those individuals is 822.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Okay. We've talked about the beds that you are forecasting that were needed, but you haven't touched on staff that is also required for this,
No.
which is an ongoing yearly cost.
Yes.
With that many people possibly housed in Union County Jail, how many officers do we currently have, and how many will we need in the future?
I will call on Alan Richardson, who's probably the best person in the country to answer that question.
Excellent question that's asked a little bit too early in the process.
If you want to pause that and answer it later, that's fine too.
Let's do that.
Okay.
In your total beds needed and your average daily population, are you taking into account the inmates that are need medical services? They're in the infirmary? Because that's another separate isolation.
That's built into those numbers. The actual,
Okay.
that component of the population would be in a future step, but yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
To Commissioner Helms. So previously, when we looked at this item, we did have some modeling, in regards to the number of officers that would be required, so correctional officers for certain size facilities. So our staff ran some modeling for that. Not one this large, I don't believe, is what we're discussing right now, but.
No, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No, go right ahead.
the second phase of this project is, once the board gives some direction on a total build-out, there are some additional components that they'll be studying, and part of that is staffing needs. They'll give us some better defined cost estimates, some options on phasing a project, and all of that really sort of comes at a second phase. So you're not going to get that level of detail today. They'll just need to know kind of what your parameters for them to look at.
Sure, but when we're doing a overlay of this, that does cost we have to factor in that cost, excuse me.
Absolutely.
And, if we decide to have this many beds, my concern right now is the sheriff's office has a hiring, they've got a.
Challenge.
Yeah, thank you, a challenge. I see on Facebook quite often, and, our sheriff's office is top-notch. But to recruit those people in is going to be a challenge to house this many people. So it is a concern, and but it does need to be looked at and discussed sooner than later.
Absolutely.
And I would just add too, you're not talking about just CO costs, you're talking about utility costs.
Exactly.
Water and service, medical care.
Yeah, the previous modeling that we did, utility is going to be a huge factor, because you're talking about, essentially, more than doubling, the size of what we've got. So this is potentially 4 times the size. So,
Well, it's outfitting each deputy as well. It's their uniform, their weapons, their vehicles, everything that needs to be installed on the vehicles. So it becomes extensive per deputy.
Yes. So this is our primary forecast, assuming that nothing changes in the current practices of the present system. Let's look at the next slide, is telling you exactly that. What our visits with stakeholders and our extensive conversations and our past experiences in other jurisdictions that were in a similar boat, we anticipate an immediate doubling of bookings when a new facility opened. If I were to wave a magic wand this evening and open a new facility, it is my estimation that bookings would double very quickly in Union County if we were to open it tonight. And so a lot of this is population growth, but we're also seeing a more serious crime issue in terms of what offenses are being conducted now versus, say, 25 years ago. So the world has gotten to be more serious, and the matters facing individuals in Union County are also more serious. So I'm going to show this table, and I'm going to make you promise me not to peek at the right side of the table. Let's look only at the left side of the table if we can, okay? But don't look at the right side. The left side is the current current policies and practices continuing. This is my forecast that you've already seen, okay? So bookings at 14.9 currently, the average daily population 255. Right now you need 319 beds according to our calculations with peaking and classification to operate a safe and secure facility. And then you can see it goes up over time such that bookings double if everything just goes on its own at the current trajectory. By 2050, of 30 bookings per day, the average daily population is 657 and the 822 bed need. Now it's time to look at the right side of the table. The right side of the table is essentially, I think, a very realistic portrayal of what could happen in terms of reality, is that if an expanded jail facility opened with our modeling for average length of stay in tow, that bookings number is 30, which coincidentally is what we're saying happens in 2050, is essentially you get the future, but you get it right away because you have more jail space. And so with the bed space available, it's a if you build it, they will come type situation, that the space is available and there is the demand present already for 30 bookings per day now, which gets the average daily population of 657. At the projected average length of stay, the bed needs 822. You can see 30 years, 25 years into the future at the bottom of the table. Bookings would grow from that point forward such that you're at 45.5 daily bookings and an average daily population getting close to 1,000 and the bed need well over 1,000. That's if everything currently in place goes to the future as it's going and a facility opens.
Could I ask you, you mentioned that the study you did for somewhere in Georgia,
Yes.
then something happened in the legal environment and it blew up your study.
Yes, sir.
What exactly happened? What did they do, decriminalize marijuana or something?
In that situation, there was a district attorney in place that felt it absolutely in the community's interest to leave everybody pretrial with a violent charge incarcerated as long as possible, even beyond their bond hearings. And so the pretrial average length of stay for that jurisdiction was significantly high. About 3 months after we issued our report, what the district attorney there did was put people out on electronic monitoring with an appearance bond promise that took the jail population there down by 500 in about a 45-day period, which completely destroyed my forecasts and our conversations with that individual's office. This was never mentioned to us as a possible change. Had that been isolated to us as a possible change, we would have happily modeled what the impact was and then said, here's the size facility that your jurisdiction needs.
Well, is part of your study to make recommendations on potential changes that we could make that would affect the average daily population with a program such as that?
Absolutely. The one handicap with all that, Commissioner, is in this instance, we don't have the criminal court case data that I can say, change this part of the processing or change this part of the process. I will also say that compared to that jurisdiction in Georgia, Union County is much more efficient and progressive in terms of trying to manage its jail population and doing things to divert and deflect individuals from custody.
Okay, in your expanded jail facility allowing for more bookings, the daily bookings, are you assuming they all end up in the jail and not released on bond or what have you, or?
These individuals would be released as they are now. The majority of individuals booked into the jail are released on bond. If you were to look at the median average, do you remember that from like 8th grade where they taught us median mode?
Yeah.
I never used it till I got into this. And essentially median is the midpoint of the data. So if we look at everybody released during the month of January and we take that middle case, we order that list by how long everybody had stayed in jail. We take the middle case, the median number for Union County is extremely low. I want to say it's less than 2. It's very low. The front door processing is very quick. It's the back door processing, but that's not necessarily a backlog issue that is easily solvable. I don't know what I don't know again, but keep in mind, these longer cases are very serious criminal matters. Homicides, aggravated assaults, et cetera, where the penalties facing the defendant/inmate are significant, and they're not in a hurry to take a plea. They want their cases tried by and large, and so that leads to longer stays in the jail.
So you're saying that if we removed the bottleneck of the limited jail capacity we have now, our bookings would almost double overnight?
Yes, sir.
Holy.
I have a question, sir. With the new administration's stance, thank you, do you foresee any changes in your projections?
I think so, because when we built these projections, it really wasn't certain what things were going to look like, and as I stand here, I'm not exactly certain what will happen with immigration enforcement, and certainly not in Union County. My assumptions in our modeling here doesn't take that into account. One of the things that I think that is helpful on our part is that if we go down the road a period of time and that picture becomes less murky, we are a phone call away to happily do some arithmetic, that if bookings increase over and above what we're seeing, we can give you that bed need very, very quickly, just because that is just an unforeseen thing, and it's unfolding right now as we speak.
Okay, I'm going to go back to this sticker shock
Yes,
here.
sir.
We're in 2025. I'm going to assume at the very least it's going to take a year to design. If we decided tomorrow, it would take a year to design and 4 years to build, depending on size? Just roughly. 2 to 3?
If you make a decision tonight.
Which ain't
to
gonna
go,
happen.
You're probably looking 4 years.
4 years to have it open from the decision being made. Okay, so you're into 2030.
Yes, sir.
Pretty darn close. So you're already looking at right at 33 bookings when the thing opens.
Yes.
Because I'm going over here to your chart on the right, because now I've got the capacity.
Yes, sir.
So we have a field of dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And keep in mind, I think one of the things that we often, when they build into this, there are other law enforcement agencies in the county that we don't control who they decide to arrest or don't arrest. We have the county, but you have 5 other jurisdictions that have their own law enforcement agencies.
Where I started in Orange County, if you were to look at an aerial shot of the Orange County Jail, you'll see the first building, and then the second building, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth building going along the lake shore there, is that they would open 256, and then 512, and then 1,024 beds, and the facilities got taller and taller, and they continued to fill those facilities. Now, there's a little bit of a happy ending. They conducted a full criminal justice case processing study and analysis over the course of a year. They had a community review board that was made up largely of stakeholders and interested members of the community. The average length of stay for the jail was, in my estimation, cut responsibly and safely, did not really compromise criminal justice safety in the community. The growth trajectory when I was hired in the end of 2001, there were only 3,000 beds available, but the inmate population was over 4,500. Those reforms that were instituted, I believe there were 23 criminal justice case processing changes that they made. They have not built a new facility since 2006 because they built their last facility, declared it to be the last, and then they started managing to the data and managing average length of stay. And it's a great example of responsible governance that they've been able to cap their facility. The issue here, like it was there, is the county was growing at an incredible incredible rate, and that county growth has leveled off in the last 10 to 15 years. And so they were able to manage and weather the storm. They have available capacity at their facility. Here, you're growing, but frankly, candidly, you got behind the 8 ball in terms of the size of the facility, that you needed a larger facility some time ago, and the demand is there for the product, basically. And so if you view jail beds as a good or service, the demand is there currently. It's pent-up demand, and when that supply is placed there, demand will meet supply.
Do you have any information that you can provide to the board of the detainees, their age grouping, if we have, you know?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Plus, the other thing that concerns me on your chart, this is only 2050. That's a 25-year projection of which it's going to take any bonds issued, any debt issued to build this facility are going to take 20 years to pay off. So we're going to have this thing paid off for 5 years and then turn around and build another one.
And now that I have cheered you all up, we will move from the forecast and start talking about next steps for the actual analysis. I will turn it back to Alan Richardson.
Thanks, Happy. So the next steps to wrap up this study, you guys are going to need to talk amongst yourselves and to make a decision for the total number of beds to be built out for this. Now, that could come in phases, and let's pick a round number and say 1,000 beds. I have no idea what you're going to come up with. You may choose not to build all of those at one time. You would build out the backbone, the core infrastructure, your water, your HVAC, and everything like that for the full build out, but maybe approach it in phases. So hopefully we can find some ways to tackle some issues and slow that growth so we won't need as many beds, or at least not as quickly. After we get the total number of beds that we're looking at building out, then we go into what we call program development. And that's looking at how the sheriff's team wants to operate the facility to be as efficient as possible. And we want to determine the operations first and then come up with a design that will support those operations, not the other way around. Once we get those operational scenarios, we talk about the narrative to describe all that for all the different building components, from your administration to your housing to your services there. And then we'll develop space allocation tables. We'll work with the team, with the county and with the sheriff to come up with the total square footage that would be needed. That's for every cell, for every office, for every broom closet in the facility, to get a total order of magnitude as to how big a facility that we're looking at. And we could also look at that in the phases as well. And then that brings us to preliminary staffing. That is really going to depend upon the size of the facility, how many housing units, the capacity of the housing units, the operational philosophy. Are we going to put an officer in every housing unit, direct supervision, or are we going to have an officer outside of the unit, remote supervision? All is going to impact staffing. We'll come up with some very high-level staffing estimates as a part of this study, but at every major step along the way, staffing needs to be revisited and be refined, because we talked about 30-year life cycle. What you're going to spend to construct a facility is going to pale in comparison as what you're going to spend to operate it. Over the course of 30 years, rule of thumb, your initial construction costs are going to be about 10% of what you're going to spend over time for this. The other 85, 90% is going to be operational costs. Of that, 80% is going to be staffing. And so that's why it's so important to do this right and to do it efficient. And efficiently doesn't always mean less staff. It means the right number of staff to be able to safely operate this facility. We'll come up with some comparative operational cost models for full capacity, phase capacity, and again, at this stage, that's going to be very high-level numbers. And that's the next step for our portion of the study that we're doing now. Any questions on those next steps from us? Yes, ma'am.
For you. So before tonight, there was a lot of conversation about wanting space to bring in federal inmates.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that factored in, like when you were meeting with the sheriff office or whatever? Are any of your numbers so that we could bring in federal inmates? Or I see you shaking your head. Are the numbers just based on our growth or our growth to bring in also federal inmates?
Federal inmates are not included in these projection numbers, and the reason for that, we want to let you know what your responsibility is for Union County responsible inmates and offenders to house here. Should you choose to contract with the Marshal Service or another federal agency, that's going to be a policy decision that you're going to have to make. That will also include numbers and a quantity. So let's say, again, you pick that round number of 1,000 beds that you're going to look for, then how many do you want to add on top of that to house, whether it's for the feds, for other counties, or for what? But we exclude those intentionally because, frankly, that's going to be a policy decision on your part. Absolutely. I do want to follow back up. You asked a question a long time ago about the stakeholders. Just to give you a list, we did speak with the sheriff, with the chief deputy, with many of the jail staff, the finance administrator, services in the jail to include food service and health services, the lieutenant over investigations, which is on the law enforcement side, an assistant county manager, a district court judge, the district attorney's office, human services administrator, environmental health, superior court judge, court security. We don't often do court security, but we talked to court security on this one too. For local law enforcement, we talked to representatives from Waxhaw, from Monroe, and from Wingate. Deputy county manager, one of your magistrates, and the chief public defender. And the clerk of court. And the clerk of court. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
I think that obviously the stakeholders is pretty important, and I'm not saying that you guys didn't interview the right people, but I would say too that that there's a lot more that we have to consider, sitting in this seat besides just our judicial staff and our law enforcement folks. And I want to circle back to something because this has been kind of eating at me. So when you were speaking, I posed you a couple of questions regarding the arrests and the bookings. And so I think that we've covered this in detail tonight, that obviously the study that you guys have done is based off of a number of assumptions. And that's really all that you can provide us because, as you mentioned, we don't have, that court data that we'd like to have. So we're kind of handcuffed already. And I understand that you guys are giving us the best data that you have, but it's still based off of assumptions. Some of those assumptions are large. Some of those maybe not so large, but it's still assumptions. And I think that I think that we're to a point where if we're not arresting or detaining people because we don't have the bed space, obviously that is a threat to the safety of our residents, in my opinion. But the bigger question is why? In your key stakeholder meetings, why is it that we're not arresting and detaining people? Okay, is it because we don't have the bed space, or because we don't want to send people to Cabarrus County? I mean, and I know that maybe you guys can't answer that question, but I think it's worth mentioning.
I can answer the response that we got.
Okay, sure.
Repeatedly was that there was no room at the inn.
At Cabarrus as well?
Here.
Okay. But we also send prisoners to Cabarrus County too. And what's the cost per day for prisoners sent to Cabarrus?
I think the sheriff is probably best suited to answer that. I will say
70.
about,
Okay, thank you.
I will say about Cabarrus too, it is a little bit of a staffing issue for them too. They have to have the staff available up there to handle our overflow, and sometimes they don't have available staff. We have worked with them to see if there's something we can arrange to send staff up there, if they can overhire staff. But that is one of the concerns too, that they may not have available staff to watch the prisoners that we do send up there.
Okay. But let's just look at it from cost perspective now. I mean, I know, I can understand that's a variable. So it's $70 per day to send prisoners to other facilities like Cabarrus. How much is it to us as a cost here in Union County? I believe it's about 65, right? Last time we checked, somewhere along that lines. So we're talking about a difference of $5 per day. And what's the going rate for jails? What's the cost?
Sorry?
If we build a 1,000-bed jail today, 1,000-bed core, what's the going rate for something like that?
That varies depending upon what part of the country you're in. What we've seen lately is total project costs can range anywhere from $800 to $1,000 per square foot.
Okay.
How many square feet are you looking at for 1,000 beds?
I don't know until we get into the next steps of our.
So 300, 400 million? No? Total build out for 1,000?
220 to 240.
Okay, but by the time 4 years rolls around, we're looking at 300.
Yeah,
And we're already $827 million in debt service. And so, the other, and again, I want to go back to the flip side, because you had a funny look, whenever I mentioned this earlier, and that is, okay, if we had more bed space.
It's his face.
All right? But if we had more bed space, I asked the question, so you're saying that we would arrest and detain more people? And you're like, well, yeah, okay. All right, so that's, kind of implying that, all right, are we going to be, just trying to, get the brakes there and trying to, fill up the end when we don't have to? Are we posing a unnecessary burden on the the taxpayers of Union County? I certainly appreciate what you were saying, where you were drawing references from other, municipalities that you guys have worked with, but I don't see that in the study. I don't see a comparison in the state of North Carolina in the study. So I don't see something in, a different county in our state that's comparable to the size of Union County. I'd like to see some comparative information. So, again, I certainly appreciate, you guys doing this study, but I think that we all need to understand that this is not an exact science, with the numbers that we're looking at. Just my personal feeling on this is that, hey, do we need a new facility? Well, I think that, you can look at our existing facility right now and make the case that structurally, sure, we need a new facility. Do we need additional beds? Probably. But I have a hard time believing that we need 822. Thank you.
I think it was 1,200.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. Chris, yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit of commentary on next steps for Union County. So we have a board retreat on the 12th, and what we plan to do there, in addition to our general capital presentation, is talk about some scenarios and present some scenarios. Those scenarios we're working through with a leadership team to try to develop what scenarios. And that, when I say scenarios, means bed count versus core size. And so we'll present several scenarios And we're going to attach high-level costs to them so that you can see what those mean, each of those scenarios. So we'll come, to you on the 12th with some of that information. Now, it's important to move to the next phase of this study for us to at least get to a decision on bed count and core size, so that they can start the program and work, so we can get our estimates can get a little tighter, at the end of the study. And we think it's going to take 60 to 90 days once the board gives us direction on bed count and core size to finish the study out, which puts us sometime in June, July to be able to bring a full presentation, complete report back to the board.
Mr. Helm's comments are kind of got me to thinking. Can we draw any conclusions from the counties we usually identify with that are close in size to us? Perhaps some have somewhat of the growing pattern. Cabarrus County, they have what, a 600-bed jail? We're sending them folks. They're not quite as large, heavily populated as Union County, but they are growing. And so they have a 600-bed jail, and they obviously have room for our people that we're sending up there.
Well,
but how soon are they going to be capped out?
Yeah, if you weren't on the board at the time, but I know the sheriff's office did some comparisons to other surrounding counties and like-sized counties. Okay. And we can try to, get that back out in front of you, if that makes sense.
Yes, for us that work here.
Before the retreat, so I have a chance to study it? I
can do my best to do that, sir. Yes, sir. I imagine it can. I'm sure the sheriff's office got it like that.
I think that would, to me, I understand what we're trying to do with the study is we're trying to put math to it and project out. But I think it would be helpful to see comparable counties. In North Carolina, we're dealing with the same legal environment under having the same parallel growth and needs for their jail facilities as well.
Understood.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Merrill, can I make a comment, please?
Yes.
After reviewing this information, back before Commissioner Sides and I were on the dais here, in October, the Union County Council on Aging came before the board and asked for additional funds for Meals on Wheels. They produced numbers for the board that showed the population up to 2042. Can I ask staff to put slide 4 back up? According to the numbers that the Council on Aging produced, they projected approximately 380,000 people in 2042. And according to this, we're going to be 225-ish. So I'm going to make a charge to the board that
We're already at 260.
Then how? These numbers are.
And I think they may be using
very off then.
They may be using the adult population. They're not using
Okay,
all.
even still,
Yeah.
if I take 76 out, that's over 300,000, and this number is not correct. So, again, as a board, we need to reflect on these numbers and maybe get some more information from people that are presenting to us, because it seems like these numbers are not accurate from somebody, and it's making me very concerned, because simply taxpayers are going to be on the hook for multitude of things that that different organizations are coming to us asking us to provide for. And if numbers are wrong, that means what we pay is wrong.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure that us going forward are really generating correct numbers that are coming to us. And I'm not saying who is right and who is wrong.
Sure.
I'm just saying the numbers that were presented to us are very off.
Yes.
By somebody.
I would recommend that we use our comp plan. Those are the numbers that were presented to you for population growth. And I would recommend those would be the numbers that you focus on.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
When these numbers are presented by different organizations. So,
If I may, for 2032 was the year. According to state demographer, total population, everybody, 314,562. And adults would be 193,868.
And I think you were looking at 2042, not 2042 is what she was looking
Okay.
at.
So total population, 379,556, adults 224,800.
He seems pretty confident.
yeah, exactly.
But I think, I don't know if everyone's understanding what's going on here, but we've been presented data back in October that said one set of numbers, and then tonight we've been presented new sets of data with conflicting numbers. So, especially as a new board member, all of us, hopefully by the retreat, hopefully all of our departments and agencies have good factual numbers. And I think the ones tonight are pretty solid.
Yeah, they seem.
But it is confusing because a prior presentation on a different topic was different.
But it's population. They were looking at a population.
Correct.
And that's another reason that I asked for what demographics, age-wise, are coming to the jail.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding this tonight? I would like to call for a 10-minute recess we'll be back, let's just call it, we'll be back at 8:30. So we'll have a recess. Okay, thank you, everyone. Much needed break. So I move that we get back on track here. The next item of business is item 25-044, the 2055 Metropolitan Transportation Plan candidate projects. I want to recognize Bjorn Hansen, Senior Planner, concerning this item.
Even Chairwoman Merrill, members of the board, Manager Matthews. This is a presentation on candidate projects that can be submitted for consideration by the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization's long-range plan. So we are part of a three-step process. We've already envisioned our projects. Now we're prioritizing, and then the ones that get prioritized move into implementation. This is the universe of projects that we draw from. This is the Comprehensive Transportation Plan in the CARTPO portions of Union County, which is the urbanized portions or areas projected to urbanize. So all of these roads that are in black or blue or red have recommendations for improvements in the future. And the last time we went through this process was about 5 years ago. This plan was adopted 4 years ago, and these are the projects that are funded. You have the Providence Road widening, the railroad extension, you have Monroe Road, US 74, you have a series of intersection projects, 601 up to the Monroe Expressway, and these are all in some stage of implementation. They might be in design or right-of-way. Monroe Road, obviously, they're clearing trees out of the way. So projects do move ahead, and we're in the process of updating the new list of projects going out to 2055. So CARTPO's listing projects now through Valentine's Day, next Friday. They're going to evaluate these projects on a variety of perspectives: congestion, safety, cost benefit, impacts on the community. They're going to evaluate them in March and April, come back with a draft list in May, and complete the work hopefully by July. And then the documentation will occur, and this whole process will be complete by next spring. Something to keep in mind is the money's already committed now through 2035, so we're talking about projects 10, 20, or 30 years into the future. So this list of projects includes background information, and it includes coordination with the adjacent or the affected municipalities. For this specific project with Wesley Chapel, it's NC 84 from the existing widening, which ends at their town hall, continues it east to Airport Road. Thought that was a logical terminus. It's about 2.5 miles. It's consistent with our comprehensive plans, with our transportation plan. Wesley Chapel has endorsed this. And the cross-section would be similar to what's already designed for NC 84, which would be 4 lanes with a median, sidewalks, or multi-purpose path on the shoulders. Any questions about this project?
If you're going all the way to Airport Road, is that going to mess up the roundabout there?
Sure.
Okay.
I assure you it will wreck that roundabout, and something will have to be rebuilt in this place.
So we get a 2-lane roundabout.
I don't know what the design will be, but that roundabout will have to be changed to
That's okay.
accommodate
I
a
won't
4-lane
live long
road.
enough to see any of this stuff anyway, so y'all can figure it out. We'll probably have flying cars by then anyway, right?
Maybe.
Okay.
The next one is Old Charlotte Highway, continuing on from the current widening, which is essentially Sun Valley, and continuing south to Rogers Road. This was in coordination with Monroe and Indian Trail. This is about 1.5 miles. It's also consistent with our comprehensive plan, consistent with the comprehensive transportation plan, be a similar cross-section, multi-purpose path, sidewalk, median. Some intersections would have revised access, so it might only be right in, right out, or directional crossovers, but it would go to Rogers, which is just north of the large grade separation project that we recently had funded at the railroad tracks at Old Charlotte Highway and Rocky River.
Madam Chair. Bjorn, real quick, just for clarification, so Indian Trail and Monroe, they are in support of this particular project?
Yes, they are.
Thank you, sir.
Would you go back to your comment you made on Rocky River, Old Charlotte Highway intersection?
Yes.
Could you reiterate that again?
It's a
Railroad
project that's funded to take the intersection and revise it so so the roads will go over the railroad tracks, which it crosses twice, once at Rocky River and once at Old Charlotte Highway.
And if I remember a conversation with Mr. Jensen, that is from a different pot of money involving the railroads?
No, it's just
Subset.
it's an artificial different pot of money.
Okay.
It's a funding category, but it's all transportation dollars.
Is it a category that has funding?
Yes, it's funded. It was one of 10 in the entire state that was funded in this past spring.
It was funded this past spring.
Yes.
When do you anticipate design and starting to move dirt?
I don't know, probably 5 years.
Oh, okay. Well, that's 5 years.
Marshville Bypass, this is in the eastern part of the county. This is also consistent with our comprehensive plan, which identifies US 74 as a future interstate. You need to upgrade US 74 to get future interstate designation. This is potentially a tolled project. That tolling study is going to start any time now. In light of the fact that the study is not going to be complete by next Friday, we're requesting that an assumption of toll benefits be applied on a basis based off of the percent of the Monroe Expressway that was paid for by tolls. So that would be approximately 25% for this project. This would be 4-lane controlled access similar to the Monroe Expressway, and Marshville is in support of submitting this project as well.
So if the Turnpike Authority agrees to make it a toll, would that expedite the construction?
Yes, it would.
Ooh. So who
Now-
do we ask? Do we ask or petition the Turnpike Authority to take it over make it a toll road? How
Well,
can
the first thing is submitting it tonight. If it makes it in the MTP, then that allows it to then get in the queue for funding to design and implement.
Okay, but when would the Turnpike Authority get involved as far as making it a toll road?
As
Right
a part
away?
of, as a part of the design and implementation
So
of
potentially
it.
they could jump right in.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then this isn't a road widening, it's really two intersections in downtown Hemby Bridge, Idlewild, Mill Grove, and Indian Trail Fairview. Really, they operate as one intersection because they're so close together. There's a lot of maneuvering of the traffic. It's very unsafe, it's congested, it's also a frequently flooded area, so there's a lot of benefits by improving these. We don't know what the design will be, but it's a critical intersection from our process 2 years ago. This is supported by Hemby Bridge and by the town of Indian Trail. And then the last one is not a request for support, it's actually a request to, or a recommendation to oppose, which is the Waxhaw Parkway. I will note that Waxhaw actually has some alternatives on what they're submitting. There's a segment that just goes from NC 16 to Waxhaw Indian Trail, which is completely within the town. That's their purview, so we have no comments on that. But the overall segment going to NC 75 crosses through Mineral Springs, crosses through unincorporated Union County. The county has taken a position in the past, and this would be consistent with that, to oppose that project. And Mineral Springs is scheduled to take similar action at their meeting next Thursday night.
You're mentioning Highway 16. Is that in the earlier years plan, the widening of Highway 16?
That's funded, design's underway, hopefully later this decade.
Yeah,
It's
that's like a
actually
10-year
well under
out.
construction, but
Okay.
yes, that's a very near-term project.
10 years being near term as far as roads
Yeah,
go.
that's sad to say, but yes.
Yeah.
Madam Chair. Bjorn, if I can stop you right here and just provide the board a little bit of clarity. So, in regards to Waxhaw Parkway, correct, Union County and Mineral Springs has opposed this. And now CRTPO at this point is kind of off the radar, if you will. I mean, it's still there, but no local points have been assigned to it. And there's been at least some reluctancy to take this issue up because the three stakeholders involved, meaning Union County, Mineral Springs, and of course Waxhaw, do not have any common agreement there. So just to give you guys some context.
So the request tonight is to support the proposed applications, the 4 that I listed, and then the 1 for opposition. And Vice Chair Helms would be your representative at CARPO to express those votes when it comes to prioritization of and inclusion in the ultimate plan for projects like these.
Madam Chair? I'll make the motion that we adopt the action requested tonight, and that is, bear with me 1 second here, that we approve the candidate project recommendations as presented, with the exception of the Waxhaw Parkway. My motion would include that we would continue to oppose the Waxhaw Parkway. So to sum it up, the requested action, my motion is to adopt the requested action as presented here on screen. Thank you.
Board, any comments, questions? Okay, we have a motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. 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 Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Bjorn. Next on our agenda is item 25047, Union County Land Preservation and Easement Program update. I want to recognize Alan Aldridge, Union County Soil and Water Conservation District Director, concerning this item.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Manager Matthews. On behalf of the Soil and Water Board and the Ag Advisory Board, we're excited to provide you an update and new business on the Land Preservation and Easement Program. A couple of y'all have seen the next 3 slides, but I think it's important to show them. So, farmland loss in Union County, North Carolina ranked 2nd in the United States for open space land loss, with Union County ranking 13th, with a county that is the 3rd largest ag county in North Carolina. I think this is alarming to a lot of people, and this slide first saw at a legislative meeting with local, state, and federal partners, which Extension hosted, really started the farmland preservation talks. So previous commission action approved in 2023, November 6th, this board approved staff to apply for North Carolina Farmland Preservation Trust Fund grant, approved the Union County Soil and Water District to hold conservation easements, and adopted the budget amendment allowing us to take PV rollback money and put it in the land preservation program. The 2023 funding was $969,000, and future PV rollback money. And this, as y'all know, the PV rollback money is money, a 3-year back grab from back taxes with land coming out of ag, forestry, horticulture, wildlife. So some staff actions since the program was approved. December 2023, we applied for the ADFP grant through the Department of Agriculture. We interviewed with them in April of '24. In May, we applied for a facilitation grant with the Working Lands Trust Fund and the Foundation of Soil and Water. In June, we were awarded that. July 24, we provided a template from the Working Lands Trust Fund for a Union County Land Preservation Easement Program. August of 2024, we were awarded $15,000 from ADFP through the Department of Ag for the development grant. Okay, so we developed a land preservation easement ordinance in partnership with Union County Legal Department. We have worked with the Soil and Water Board of Supervisors and the Ag Advisory Board to set priorities and develop a rank criteria for future easements. And we are currently working with the Rural Land Committee to set future priorities and ranking criteria. And we have been engaging with a lot of landowners. We have a long list of people to contact when this goes live. So this is the first easement. This is our pilot project, easement 90-2025-001. This is a 104-acre farm off of Highway 200, Morgan Mill Road. It is almost half and half ag land and forest land. It has over 60 acres of soils of statewide importance and prime farmland. So that's over half of the property. And it also has 3,100 feet of river frontage, has a historic mill on the site. It's a century farm, and it's also in the voluntary ag district. Before I get to the next part, I'm going to show you the map of the property. You can see it's on Rocky River, and it has a bunch of forest land and cropland. So going back, the fair market value, the estimated fair market value is just a little over $1 million. The PU value is $52,900. So the total conservation easement value is $962,000. We are looking at a 75% purchase of this easement, which is a permanent easement, and that's $721,575,000. This has a 25% donation value of $240,000. So that is a 75% purchase easement with a 25% donation. Any questions on this easement?
What's a century farm?
A farm that has been in the family for over 100 years.
For a century,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes.
Just touch on donation value there again, just so I'm clear with that.
Okay, so we are purchasing $720,000. That's 75% of the easement value,
Okay.
with the landowner donating 25%. If he would go after other easement programs, they pay up to 100%. The state will pay 50 and the feds will pay 50. So we're looking at a 75% max on our conservation easements. Any other questions regarding that?
No, sir.
Okay, this is our second easement tonight, easement 90-2025-002. This is a 59-acre farm off of Walters Mill Road. It has 35 acres in crop production, 20 in forest land, and it has 25 acres of soils of statewide importance. It has 3 different ponds equaling around 3 acres, but this is a 100% donation. The estimated fair market value on this property is $405,800. And after we look at state sales data, we have to adjust that to the new value of $605,942. So this is pre-tax reval numbers, and the median sales ratio value adjusts that to $605,000. With the PU value of $54,000, the estimated total donated conservation easement value is $551,000. So we are not purchasing this easement. We're getting it donated 100%. All we have to pay for is transactional costs, surveys, environmental assessments, and legal fees associated with this. Any questions? And here's a map on that property.
What are soils of statewide importance?
Very important soils to agriculture.
In other words, it's very fertile?
Very fertile.
Okay.
Any other questions on this slide? So, other opportunities that we have when we move this program forward. ADFP, which is through the Department of Ag, we can ask for matching opportunities. We can work with them and pay for transactional costs, which will help ADFP applications rank higher for other easements. So we're not just looking at the Union County program, we're looking at other opportunities to conserve land in Union County. With the ADFP program, there's the ALE through NRCS. So it's basically the same thing, but with federal monies. And we're also working with easement partners, Catawba Lands, Working Lands Trust, and Three Rivers. Catawba Lands actually brought us the donated easement.
Oh, wow.
And again, we worked with Catawba Lands on that grant. So the actions that we are requesting tonight as the Soil and Water Board and the Ag Advisory Board is to adopt the Union County Land Preservation and Easement Ordinance as attached, approve the allocation of funds from the budget that long number, for the purchase of easements 90-20-25-001 for the amount of $721,575. Accept easement 90-20-25-001 into the Union County Land Preservation Easement Program. Accept the donation of easement 90-20-25-002 into the Union County Land Preservation Easement Program. And adopt Budget Amendment 22 appropriate in the Union County's General Fund unassigned fund balance in the amount of $885,991 to be used for the purchase of conservation easements and associated transactional costs. And to make clear, that is PUV rollback money from 2024 for lands coming out of ag, forestry, hort, and wildlife. So that was a big ask. Is there any questions regarding that? Or, okay.
Madam Chair, I've got questions. How much federal funds have we received to increase the dollar amount to add land into these preservations?
Zero.
Can we get funds from the federal government?
Going back a couple months ago when we first presented this, one of the main reasons to have the Union County program is speed. So if we apply for an ADFP easement, 3 to 5 years to get 50%. Once they get that, then they have to apply for ALE.
Okay.
3 more. You're looking at a 3 to 7 year process for that. Now, if we have landowners who are willing to wait, yes, we'd love to push them there. It'll cost less for us, and we'll get more land conserved because we'll just have to pay for the transactional cost. But a lot of landowners, when they're thinking about easements, they've had a health scare. Something's come up and they're thinking about, the future of their land.
Okay.
But no, we will apply. That is part of the program. We, again, just got the, where we could hold easements in 2023.
Okay. So what happens to the property after the landowner passes?
It transfers just like any other property would to the next landowner.
Okay. Does it remain in the program at that point?
Perpetuity, forever.
Okay. Okay. And who's responsible for the taxes once it's entered into the program?
The landowner.
Okay, they're still responsible for the taxes. Is this considered a revocable or irrevocable trust?
I can't answer that question.
This generally falls into the realm of an irrevocable documentation. It's not technically a trust, it's more of an easement that's purchased. So if you can think of it as when you sell off an easement, the purchaser of that easement has it for as long as they own it. It's just theirs.
Okay. Yeah, the word trust was just used in it, so I wanted to verify. Okay.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, if I could, I just want to talk, sorry.
Couldn't figure it out either.
Just on the last bullet point, if the board does want to do this and move forward with this program again, this funding would come out of the county's available fund balance, which you saw at the last board meeting in the audit. So it would come out of that dollar amount. I just wanted you all to be aware of that. Not saying you should or shouldn't do it. I just want you to know that that would come out of available fund balance for your consideration as part of the budget.
I have another question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
How many other properties have interest in putting this into the easement?
We have not pushed this out, but right now, just people watching these meetings, we have 10 to 15 people coming. When we start talking about this, we get a lot of interest, saying we really haven't even pushed it out.
Okay.
In light of that this is increasing in popularity, should we not look at this as a regular budget item for next year rather than going out of the fund balance?
Well, go ahead.
If we anticipate this continuing to occur.
Well, and the way the program is set up, that as land comes out of the voluntary ag district, there are 3 years worth of taxes that are clawed back, and that's the funding that is being used to pay for the program. So the board could put additional funding into it if you chose to, but this is all land that has come out of the voluntary ag district.
So the cost is coming back around to us.
Right. And the other thing is from year to year, that number changes.
Right,
So
right. So
it's harder to budget for.
Gotcha.
Because
as long
if
as the
I'm-
money's
if-
coming back.
If I'm not mistaken, it was over 900,000 the last time we talked about this, right?
That was the 2023 amount. This is
Nine.
this is the 2024
Four.
request.
That number was 969.
Thank you. I would like to hear. I would. I would like to ask the county manager, I mean, in light of this coming out of our fund balance, I would like to hear your comments on, you know, the pros, cons, impact.
I mean, certainly it has an impact on our overall budget, but I think from our perspective, we look at what is the benefit from the program, and the program is actually geared at doing a couple of things. The board has made it very clear that you have a desire to protect rural open space and the rural character of this community. You're not going to do that unless you put your money where your mouth is, and I think that's kind of what this is. This is a way to help with that. So yes, it has an impact, but I think honestly it's a good program.
Okay, so that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Did you have a question, Mr. Helms? Okay.
Okay.
Well, then I would like to make a motion that we approve the action coming before us for the soil and water 25-047.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a comment before we vote. First of all, Alan, thank you. Appreciate that. You know, when we previously discussed this, obviously I was a big proponent of this program, and I still am. I think that the comments from our county manager were spot on. Sometimes you have to put your money where your mouth is, and this is something that speaks to the fabric of Union County. You know, agriculture is so important to us, and maintaining, you know, these, you know, permanent easements to make sure that these properties remain agriculturally based is immensely important, especially considering the residential growth that we've seen in this area. So I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
If I could just second his comments, I mean, good land like you have here, they don't make it anymore. And once it's turned into a shopping center or a residential neighborhood, it doesn't go back to farmland. So the numbers you provided about the loss of farmland, how Union County ranks in the nation, that is a very sobering figure.
It's not a number to be proud of.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I just made the comment that it's not a number to be proud of. Thank you very much for coming forth for this information. It's greatly appreciated. It's something that is very near and dear to my heart, along with a lot of the people out in our audience tonight that are farmers or have been farmers. The 13th in the nation is not something to be proud of in the loss of land. So I am very honored that I was able to present this tonight.
Absolutely. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve this request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is item 25-056, appointments to boards and committees. There are 3 boards with vacancies for consideration this evening. These vacancies have been advertised in accordance with the board's rules of procedure. Applications have been received, and information regarding the vacant positions may be found in the background provided for this item. First is the Consolidated Human Services Board. There are 9 total vacancies on this board. I will now entertain a motion for nominations. Commissioner Helms.
Madam Chair, thank you. I would like to make a motion that we appoint Mr. Noyce Harrigan to fill the vacant engineer position. And I think we can probably do this all in one motion, but I'd also make the motion that we approve or appoint Ms. Lisa Kerner to fill the other person position at the Consolidated Human Services Board.
Okay. Any comments? Okay. All those in favor say aye. 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 The second board with a vacancy for consideration this evening is the Board of Equalization and Review. I will now entertain a motion for a nomination for this board.
Madam Chair? I'll make the motion that we appoint Mr. Thomas J. Smith to the Board of Equalization and Review.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, okay. The third board with vacancies for consideration this evening is the Library Board of Trustees. There are 3 vacancies on this board. I will now entertain a motion for nominations to the Library Board of Trustees.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'll make the motion that we appoint the 3 applicants. I'm probably going to mess this name up, but Valerie Gromlovitz, Julie Thomas, and also Charlene Balcom to the Library Board of Trustees.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye. 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 Okay. That brings us to the end of our meeting. I will start with the county manager's comments.
I just want to say thank you to the board. I appreciate the opportunity to work for the board, and wish you a good night.
And I'll remain at this end. Commissioner Gary Sides.
No comments, ma'am.
Commissioner Helms.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, I want to tell the folks that took the time to come tonight and speak, thank you. I really appreciated the engagement from the public and the participation. Our first speaker for, gosh, what was the organization about the trees?
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was
Meredith Marr.
yeah, Ms. Marr.
Trees Union.
Trees Union. I thought that was fantastic and certainly appreciated that. I appreciated also the input that we got from others that had concern with animal welfare. As always, appreciate our staff tonight. It's been a long night, but we've had lots of good discussion, I think, and it's been a good, productive meeting. So, again, thank you to all of our staff. Thank you to my fellow board members and to everyone out there. Good night.
Okay. Commissioner Clancy Balcom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought you were coming on this one. Truly, the only comment is I'm really happy to see the farm down at the river, Morgan Mill Road and Rocky River, going into this program. I've often admired that farm, would have liked to have bought that farm. But this is the next best thing, that it will remain in agriculture, and I hope everybody has a good night.
Thank you. Commissioner Helms.
No comment. Thank you.
Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't say, Commissioner Jerry Simpson, thank you for being here tonight. It's always great to see you active and out.
I know what y'all do. So.
Yeah, yeah, and you still show up and support us. So just wanted to say hello and thank you for being here tonight. We also had the chairman of Union County Public Schools Board of Education. We had Jimmy Benchin here with us tonight. So yeah, Jimmy was here, and I just, Joel, it's always great to have your participation. So thank you everyone for being here tonight. And with that, I will make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. 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 Good night, everyone.